You know, when you look up at those towering skyscrapers dominating our cities, or when you scroll past the logos of those massive global brands you interact with literally every single day, it's incredibly easy to make a quick assumption. You might think, oh, the world's biggest companies are just owned entirely by a handful of famous billionaires, the Elon Musks, the Jeff Bezos types, or legacy dynasties like the Walton family. And honestly, it makes for a great, simple narrative, doesn't it? Just a few titans at the very top holding all the cards. But the reality of global wealth and corporate governance is actually vastly more complex, and frankly, so much more fascinating than just reading down a Forbes list of the world's richest people. So today, in this explainer, we're going on a journey to uncover the hidden, hyper-decentralized ownership network behind the modern global economy. We're going to bypass those surface-level assumptions and really dig into the deep mechanics of how modern capitalism actually functions behind closed doors. So I want to ask you directly, who do you think really holds the keys to the largest corporations on Earth? Seriously, if we strip away the famous CEOs, the flashy press releases, and the big names dominating the financial headlines, who actually owns the underlying assets? Take a second and really think about it. The default image in pop culture is usually this shadowy boardroom, right? A dozen tycoons sitting around a mahogany table, making all the calls, pocketing all the dividends, and dictating global markets. But the truth is actually much closer to home. The answer is most likely sitting right in your pocket, in your digital banking app, or at the bottom of your latest paycheck. Because the reality completely flips our usual assumptions upside down. The actual owners of the world's biggest companies are millions of everyday investors. It's you. When we aggregate all the data, global pension funds and mutual funds manage tens of trillions of dollars in assets. That staggering amount of capital represents the lion's share of global equities. Behind these massive corporate entities are workplace pension funds, insurance premiums, sovereign wealth funds, and just ordinary people systematically investing a piece of their income. If you have a 401k, an IRA, or even a broad market ETF that you put a few bucks into every month, you are directly connected to the biggest businesses on the planet. You are a fundamental node in this giant global ownership network. To truly grasp the scale of this, we really have to look at the hyper-decentralization of modern equity. We aren't just talking about a company's stock being split among a few dozen early investors anymore. Today's equity markets are characterized by massive retail influxes and algorithmic high-frequency trading that blurs ownership lines by the millisecond. A single multinational corporation's equity might be distributed across tens of millions of distinct retail brokerage accounts, international funds, and employee stock programs, all at the exact same time. The whole concept of ownership, it's no longer a static paper certificate locked in a vault somewhere. It's a highly fluid, heavily decentralized web that literally changes shape every single day as millions of shares change hands in fractions of a second. Yet while equity ownership is incredibly decentralized, influence is a completely different story. And this is exactly where we need to focus on the absolute core of today's explainer: the massive difference between ownership and control. In many megacorporations, the most crucial stakeholder to identify is what's called the promoter. A promoter is typically the original founder, a founding family, or a deeply entrenched insider group that wields outsized sway over the business. Think about massive tech conglomerates or legacy automotive giants where the founding families still dictate the corporate roadmap. A promoter might only own a tiny fraction of the total outstanding equity, but here is the critical mechanism. They absolutely do not need to own anywhere near 100% of a company to exert total dominance over its future. Picture a multinational corporation where 80% of the equity is scattered across millions of retail investors all around the globe. Because that massive majority is highly fragmented, completely unorganized, and let's be honest, largely passive, a promoter holding just a 20% cohesive block can effectively steer the entire ship. The scattered millions simply cannot coordinate fast enough or effectively enough to challenge a unified, concentrated voting bloc. This is exactly why institutional analysts know they have to look far beyond just the total market cap or the sheer volume of shares. They have to map the dynamic of who merely owns the dispersed capital versus who is unified enough to actually dictate the agenda. This whole dynamic gives rise to the invisible ownership network, which honestly is full of incredible contradictions. There is a deep irony in the modern financial system. Think about it. You might spend your entire Saturday actively protesting a mega corporation's business practices, completely unaware that on Monday morning, your workplace 401k is automatically buying the dip on their stock. The vast majority of investors are participating indirectly. Their capital is pooled together into index funds and target date retirement schemes, which completely divorces the person providing the money from the company receiving it. You are an owner, sure, but your ownership is functionally invisible to you. Let's actually follow a single dollar from your paycheck straight down to Wall Street to see exactly how this separation happens. Step 1, you earn your salary and responsibly route a percentage into your retirement account. Step 2, your pension fund aggregates your contribution with the savings of tens of thousands of other workers. Step 3, an asset manager takes that colossal pool of liquidity and strategically allocates it across global markets. And finally, step 4, they inevitably buy massive blocks of shares in major conglomerates. Boom. In just 4 steps, your personal savings decision has just fueled a multi-billion-dollar corporate acquisition on the completely other side of the world. The ultimate provider of the capital, you, is entirely insulated from the corporate boardroom. Because of this massive pooling effect, if you look at the shareholder registries of the S&P 500, they aren't filled with millions of individual names. Nope, they are dominated by the big 3, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, along with massive sovereign wealth funds like Norway's government pension fund. Together, these giant entities manage trillions upon trillions of dollars in assets. That's enough money to make your head spin. But the vital distinction here is that these institutions do not personally own that capital. They are managing it on behalf of firemen, teachers, doctors, and corporate employees worldwide. They wield the immense power of the capital, but the actual underlying ownership, that belongs to the everyday public. Which brings us right back to that vital distinction in modern finance we touched on earlier: ownership versus control. In the current market architecture, these two concepts are practically divorced. While ownership is all about spreading capital far and wide to minimize risk, control is about exercising voting power to maximize strategic outcomes. So why the huge disconnect? Well, mostly because retail investors suffer from extreme proxy apathy. Let's be real, the average individual owner doesn't sit down on a Tuesday night to read a 300-page proxy statement, and they rarely ever log in to cast their fractional votes. As a result, the default voting power just flows naturally upward, consolidating in the hands of those large institutional managers and the entrenched promoters.
And the stakes of this proxy consolidation are absolutely enormous. Simply owning shares means practically nothing if you forfeit the right to dictate corporate actions. Concentrated voting power determines exactly who gets a seat on the board of directors. It dictates if a CEO's multi-million-dollar compensation package is approved, or if the company will authorize a hostile takeover of a rival firm. We've actually seen incredible real-world examples recently, where tiny activist hedge funds, just by securing the backing of major institutional voting blocs, have completely overhauled the boards of legacy oil and gas giants right against the incumbent management's wishes. That is the raw, undeniable power of consolidated control.
You don't always need to own the entire company to influence its direction. That thesis right there, that is the defining characteristic of modern corporate power, and it is most aggressively weaponized through mechanisms like dual-class share structures. It's wild how this works. In a dual-class system, a company issues Class A shares to the public with 1 vote per share, while the founders hold Class B super voting shares that might carry 10 times the voting weight. Through financial engineering like this, a founder could theoretically sell off 85% of their economic stake in the company to raise capital while still retaining a mathematically unbeatable 60% of the voting control. It's brilliant and kind of terrifying all at once. Ultimately, the world's biggest companies just aren't the personal fiefdoms of solitary billionaires anymore. The modern economy is driven by an extraordinarily complex, deeply layered network. Behind the megacorporations are the massive block shareholders. Behind those block shareholders are the multi-trillion-dollar institutions. And behind those institutions, well, is you. We exist in a financial paradigm defined by hyper-decentralized ownership, where the financial risk is spread across the global public, juxtaposed directly against hyper-concentrated control, where select few actually steer the trajectory of global commerce. Which leaves us with a massive, provocative question to ponder. We've firmly established that institutions are the ones holding the concentrated voting power on behalf of millions of passive individuals. But if these massive institutions manage tens of trillions of dollars in global capital, who exactly controls the institutions? Who dictates their proxy voting guidelines? Who decides which global industries receive a massive influx of retail capital and which ones are intentionally starved of funding? Because the ultimate power in this world doesn't sit with the person who holds the most shares. True power belongs to those who control the spigot of capital itself. Think about that for a bit, and I really hope you'll join us for our next explainer as we continue to dissect the fascinating architecture of our global systems.